Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar where we are going to talk about the new solutions and technologies from Epcom brand. Uh, I want to say first, Enrique, good morning, how are you?
Morning. Good morning, Miguel. Everything good? How you doing?
Great, Enrique, welcome. I'm pretty good too, thanks. Enrique, just let's wait a couple of minutes so
Okay.
everyone can join to this webinar and we are going to start in about 2 minutes, okay?
All right. Gotcha.
In the right side of your panel, there is a question panel, so if anyone has some question, you are welcome to ask Enrique. Hello everyone. Just to let you know again that we are waiting just a couple of minutes so everyone can join this webinar. Enrique, I think we can start now.
All right. Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, guys. Welcome, everyone. My name is Enrique Luna. I'm the trainer for EPCAM for all America region. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for being here, for taking time out of your day to participate in this webinar. It will be quite short, but we'll try to squeeze in as much information as possible, right? So you got on the right side of your window on your panel, you have a chat box. You can ask any questions you guys have there. Anything that is not clear, please ask away. Even as basic as it seems, please take your time, take this opportunity and ask whatever questions you guys have. Okay. So the idea of this webinar is also clarify as much information as possible regarding the new products that are coming out, or also have a little back and forth with you guys to answer any question you have so far. Okay, so let's begin with what we have new in EPCOM in CCTV. We are just releasing the new audio IP cameras with built-in microphone. These cameras don't only come with a built-in microphone, so they can also record and transmit audio. They also work with Color Plus, which is a technology that we have for working in color 24/7 and also working with Sense Plus Light. I will explain that a little bit further, but just so you know, these are cameras that can do smart motion detection, that are able to differentiate people and or vehicles from the rest of the elements in the scene and only trigger alarms based on those two factors. Now, on the next level, we have the Sense Plus cameras. Sense Plus camera that can come with built-in microphone, but not for all models. What you see in the screen, you have every camera that has a built-in microphone, has the microphone logo on the right side. So basically, we have 4, 6, and 8 megapixel in both bullet and domes. and we have 4 and 6 megapixel on turret cameras. Now, all the bullet cameras come with a built-in microphone. The dome cameras, only the 8 megapixel camera will come with built-in microphone. And for the turret cameras, they all come with built-in microphone. Now, the last two models on the turret, on the bullet and dome, they can also come with Color Plus. They come with both Sense Plus and Color Plus. I will dig in a little bit on both technologies so I can explain how they work better in a bit. Now, the other new products that we are releasing are the dual light cameras. These cameras, the main feature that they have is that based on the analytics, when they are able to detect a motion by a person and or a vehicle, they will switch from the IR light and turn on a white light illuminator so they can see better at night, and you can actually get a better performance and also a better quality of evidence, so you can actually see in colors. These cameras have a white light illuminator that you can turn off if you don't want for some areas, because we all know that for every project we have to look at from different aspects, and one of them is the scenario. I think that's the most important part of doing your selections. But in some areas, maybe the white light is not as how you say, you cannot apply to every space, so you can also turn it off, right? For some spaces that you don't want it on. Maybe that's the only camera you found in stock, but yeah, you can turn on and off this feature. But it allows you to switch from IR, from infrared light in black and white, and switch it back to color by illuminating the area with a white illuminator, right? So all these cameras that you see here from 2 and 4 megapixel, they also come, all of them, with built-in microphones, so they can also get audio, right? Now, it's not the same as two-way audio. We don't have that as yet. We'll have it soon, but it means at least you can record all the audio that is in the scene, and it will be stored in the NVR, and it doesn't matter which NVR you're using. All of our NVRs can support the audio as long as the camera support having a built-in microphone. Okay, so you don't need to change also your NVR. You can keep your NVR. You can just switch the cameras, right? Now, you can also, of course, monitor this audio through the Hik Connect app, or also the Guardian Vision app. So they won't matter. You don't need to make any updates, any firmware changes. Just get the camera. It will work with your NVR, and you can get the audio completely without problem in your live view and also on your playback. Now, I'm gonna dig in a little bit into some features that, as per our experience in the market, I think they have to be clarified, and we should note that there are features that our cameras have that maybe not everybody knows how to activate them or what they do. Now, because I've been to projects in which I see that they install the cameras really well, really nice, but there are functions and features that they are not taking advantage of. For example, WDR. WDR, it stands for Wide Dynamic Range, which is the capacity of a camera through its sensor and its image signal processors to compensate the different levels of light and different levels of illumination in this scenario. For example, what you're seeing on the left side, you see the camera with WDR off and WDR on. I'm going to give you a quick example. Let's imagine, I know many of you installers have seen this happening in your projects. You have a camera inside of a warehouse, right? And all the lights are off. And it's during the day, but there's no light coming from the outside. And the camera is working well, performing as expected. You see everything, but now somebody opens a door or opens a window, or move a curtain or whatever, and now everything turns darker, and you can only see from the door or the window outside, right? From that point to outside. That is because the camera is not doing a compensation of the different levels of light, of illumination. That's when WDR comes on. Now, WDR is not the magic cure for everything, but it's actually really helpful for many scenarios in which I have windows that, the sun comes out from the east, sets on the west, and during the day have different levels of illumination. So WDR does also that compensation, right? To get a better effect out of the image that you get in your scenario. Now, you can enable WDR from both the web interface of the camera, and you can also do it from the local interface of the MBR, right? You just have to find on the image features, display settings, sorry, you find WDR under the backlight settings, as you can see on you see on your screens. On that section, just enable WDR, turn it on, and you'll see a complete change in the image. Now, there's another feature that all of our IP cameras have, which is the rotate mode. As you're seeing right now, this is the perfect example of where you want to do it. Hallways, for example. What does rotate mode does? It doesn't like rotates the camera physically, because that's what most of the installers have been doing. That you take the camera, you try to twist it to the side, maybe 90 degrees on the side, so you can actually get to see a little bit better. You don't need to do all of that. What we do with rotate mode is actually change the aspect ratio of the view of the camera from 16:9 to 9:16. Whatever was the width, now is the height, and whatever was the height, now is the width, right? So it's changed the aspect. Now the video will look narrower, but you also get to see more depth, right? So you can change that view, and you don't need to go to the camera to do anything. You just do it from the web interface or from the the web interface of the camera, or also the local and web interface of the MBR. Now, these are features that are just one click away. So you don't have to actually buy specific cameras for any of this. All of our IP cameras support this mode. Now, I do have to note that this is not available for DVRs or analog cameras. They cannot change their aspect ratio. This is only for IP. WDR, what was mentioned just a few minutes ago, it is available for both IP and analog solutions, right? And it comes from the camera. The recorder doesn't care about if it supports or not WDR. The camera is the one that is doing all the job, right? So now, actually, just as a reminder, you guys have a chat box on the right side. If you have already been texting Miguel, let me know, because I cannot see it from here. But if there's any questions, you guys please type away. I will try to answer them as soon as possible, right? So yeah, you have the right there, so you can ask any questions. Anything I just mentioned is not clear, or any other questions that you have with our products. Now, Sense Plus and Color Plus. What is that? Okay, let's put it in separate places. Sense Plus is regarding analytics. Color Plus is regarding quality of picture or performance of the video. In terms of Color Plus is able to give you, through the features that the sensor and the alignment between the sensor and the lens, give you a 24/7 colorful video. Now, Color Plus is not the magic cure for everything. Every scenario is different. Color Plus is really useful for those scenarios that are really dark, but at least there's some kind of illumination in the background that helps a little, because what Color Plus is doing is opening the sensor, opening the obturator in a way that more light comes in with an aperture of f1.0. So actually more light comes in, and you will not get the ghosting effect that will happen with regular cameras when you try to open up more the aperture of the lens. It will not cause that ghosting effect, but it will also give you a more colorful video, even at night, right? It does not work with IR. Color Plus does not work with IR. It means that it's not working with infrared light, but it's also working with more aperture on the lens. Now, Sense Plus is available on both Color Plus and non-Color Plus cameras. It doesn't care if the camera has the other feature or not. Sense Plus is analytics. What is the job of Sense Plus? Sense Plus is able to differentiate the movement pattern and shape of people and or vehicles in order to trigger alarms based, or trigger events, any kind of events, based on people and or vehicle. For example, in Sense Plus, you have Sense Plus and Sense Plus Lite. Sense Plus Lite is only for motion detection. It's really useful either way because, for example, what I know if you have gone through this, that you go to a customer and he asks you to configure his phone or his computer to get notifications whenever there's movement, and on the next day he's asked you to say, hey, please shut it down, right? Because I got 79 notifications just because it was raining outside. Sense Plus Lite gets rid of all of that because Sense Plus Lite is able to only capture the motion of people and or vehicles and avoid false notifications. For example, if it's raining, if it's the light flickering, if it's animals moving like cat, dogs, or whatever, or for example, or movement of branches, all of that, all of those false positives would not trigger Sense Plus Lite, right? Only people and or. When I say and or is that you can choose actually. I don't care if vehicles passing, I only care if people walking, right? There's somebody walking over the area. I don't care if car pass on the background. I don't care about that. Maybe there's a highway or maybe there's a road. But if somebody's walking through the area, I want to get notification and also recording. Let's say notification is not that much of a problem. I know you will save a lot of money in in your budget when you are budgeting for storage, right? Because instead of having a lot of unnecessary recording, you may have only maybe 2 or 3 hours a day of recording. So if you were recording 24/7, now we only be recording 1/8 or almost 1/10 of what you were recording before. So you will saving a lot of money in terms of storage, right? So that's the main feature of having Sense Plus and Sense Plus Lite. Now, Sense Plus also, the next step from Sense Plus Lite, can condition the function even more. I'm gonna go a little bit further and I'm gonna coming back. What Sense Plus does is that allows you to draw lines in the scenario, a line crossing or even a perimeter that you can draw, and you can say, if a person and or a vehicle enters or exits or crosses this line in a specific direction, maybe just left to right, right to left, sorry, I got stuck. In any direction or even both ways, then trigger the alarm. I don't care if they're moving around. I care if they jump over the fence. For example, I have a camera on a side of a fence, right? And I can see from both ends, from both sides, inside and outside, right? I care if somebody jumps over the fence and enters into the property, right? That's the trigger I want to get. I don't care if they're moving over the sidewalk. They're supposed to move moving up the sidewalk. But if somebody from the sidewalk jumps into the property, then I want to get the trigger. So that's when you use Sense Plus. If you only want care about movement of people and or vehicles, then you just step down to Sense Plus Lite. Sense Plus cameras are also capable of doing not simultaneously as the line crossing and perimeter protection, but they could either do that function and also face capture. Face capture allows you to also get the crop image of a face of a person. And if you are using one NVR, which I will show in a bit, that is able to do face recognition, the cameras are helping the NVR, the Sense Plus camera, are capable of helping these NVRs to do more channels with face recognition. Now, I will go back a little bit so I can keep explaining what I was saying. Now, we also have this PTC camera, which we call the Dual Vision, which are 2 cameras in one. Only one cable, but give you 2 channels. One channel for the PTC, which is pan, tilt, and zoom, like horizontal, vertical movement, and also zooming in. And also have a fixed camera on top that allows you to have always a fixed view in some area while the PTC is looking elsewhere. And you can also link events from one camera to the other to say, oh, I detected movement by the fixed camera. I want the PTC to look in that way and go do zooming into that specific area to see what is happening with more detail, right? Now, this camera only requires one wire. It will go through PoE, or sorry, PoE plus. And when you add it to the NVR, it will reflect as 2 channels, even though it's using only one Cat6 RG45 connection. Okay, only one network cable. Now, another feature that these cameras have, as well as our other PTC cameras, is the scheduled tasks, which is a really useful feature that you can say, okay, maybe I'm not operating the camera all day. Maybe I don't have somebody that's moving a joystick all around all day. I can schedule tasks with camera to say, okay, from 0600 to 10 a.m. in the morning, I want the camera to do this panning, looking over this area. Then from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., I want the camera to do this other patrol. And then another time, I want the camera to do a fixed position, looking at this door, seeing whoever comes in and comes out. And you can schedule up to 10 tasks per day, right? Even you can have different tasks on Monday than Thursdays or Sundays that maybe the business is not open, or they're not open for business on Sunday. So I put different tasks because maybe I don't need to see at the door. I need to see another place, right? You can set up different tasks per day, up to 10 of them. Another feature that our cameras also have is the power off memory. Let's say there was a blackout. There's no power, camera turned off. As soon as the power comes back, the camera will resume any task that it was doing up to 10 minutes before shutting down. It will record on its memory whatever it was doing before the power went down. It will resume that task, so it doesn't stay all depressed, looking down, waiting for somebody to move it. Right? The camera will keep working. It will remain. It will reassume its position before shutting down. Now, guys, remember, any questions, write it on the panel. Whatever, guys, whatever is not clear, please just ask away. Miguel, do we have any questions so far, or are we good?
Not right now, Enrique. We don't have anyone.
Okay, cool. Right. So for the MBR's product family, we actually go from the smallest applications of only 4 channels up to 256 channels, MBRs with 24 hard drive bays, right? So it depends on the needs of your project. We actually can cover from really small and medium business to big high-end value systems that can adapt to a lot of cameras with a lot of bandwidth requirement, with a lot of storage requirement that it might arise in your project. So just so you know that we have that. And I want to mention a couple of things that I also have seen as a trainer in the region when people are buying MBRs and DVRs. Let's talk about the MBRs first. The main limitation when you're buying an MBR is not only how many channels it supports or how many hard drive bays it has. It is about the incoming and outgoing bandwidth. I'm gonna give this information because I know it's gonna be really useful for you installers out there. When we are doing bandwidth calculation, which is the consumption in network that our cameras and our system is having, there's a rule that I need to follow. That rule is composed by 3 elements: compression rate, frames per second, and resolution. The compression rate that we usually use nowadays is H.265. The frame rate that we use, depending on the project, what we call real-time video, is a 30 frames per second video. And the resolution is going to depend on the needs of the project. But I'm going to give you this formula that you guys will, I know you guys will find really useful. Let me see if I can expand this again, sorry. Okay, I think my PPT is bugging out. Maybe, yeah, it's okay now. So there's this formula that I recommend you guys to follow when you're trying to calculate bandwidth, to know how much actually am I consuming in my network and which MBR do I need to choose. Because not only EPCOM, any manufacturer in the market will have to give you this kind of information. What is the bandwidth that my MBR supports? I'm going to show you also that in a data sheet of one of our MBRs so you can find this information. Now, coming back to the rule, you have compression, frame rate, and resolution. Compression, as I said, is H.265, which is the most common use. You can use H.264, but I will tell you why is not recommended. You have the frame rate, 30 frames per second is what we call a real-time video, and you have resolution. Now, let's put it this way. There is a rule that says In H.265 compression at 30 frames per second, which is again what we call real-time video, for every megapixel of resolution, I am consuming 1 megabit per second of bandwidth, which translates to, if I'm using a 4 megapixel camera in H.265 at 30 frames per second, I am consuming 4 megabits, 1 megabit per second for each megapixel. Sorry. If I'm using an 8 megapixel camera, it's 8 megabits. If I'm using a 2 megapixel camera, it's 2 megabits. Now, if I lower the frame rate, let's say from 30 to 15, now I'm actually having half the frames. So instead of consuming 2 megabits in a 2 megapixel camera, I will be consuming 1 megabit. Instead of consuming 4 megabits in a 4 megapixel camera, I'm consuming 2 megabits. Yeah, I'm having less frames per second. The difference is kind of noticeable, but it's less noticeable from 30 to 15 than, for example, 15 to 7. Even though the proportion is almost the same, you actually have way less frames, right? So you have to keep that in mind. But why am I saying this? Because there are things that you can tweak around. You can move some values that adjust the needs of the projects, allows you to have a better performance in your budgeting, right? When you are doing you calculate your budget, or even the storage calculation. Not every camera needs to be recording at 30 frames per second. Not every camera has the same level of priority as other cameras. There are also other features that allows you to allocate different resources. For example, our NVRs and DVRs can also have this quota, which allows you to say, okay, from this 2 terabyte HDD, I'm gonna dedicate 1 terabyte only for one camera and the rest for the other cameras. So that camera, maybe the camera at the vault, at the vault of a bank, it has higher priority than any other camera, so it's gonna record for more time, even on the same hard drive. These are a lot of features that we can talk about later more in other webinars, but just so you know, there's a lot of things you can do. And yeah, our system may be plug and play, but there's a lot of things you can do to actually make more out of it, right? Or even have a more competitive solution for your customer and even a lower price, right? Or make a bigger margin for your projects using the same device that you were using at the first time, but maybe having a smaller hard drive in terms of storage, right? There are many things values you can play with. Now, I'm gonna jump a little of this. I'm gonna show you guys. This is what you will find when you are doing playback by using Sense Plus Lite or even Sense Plus as well, to only find the videos stored by vehicles and or people, which actually also helps a lot in the playback, in the search of videos, to be able to work easier for the operators, or even from your phone for the end customer, right? That, hey, I want to find the video of whoever got into my property, but it was raining all night. Don't worry, just find the video of people and you will only get that clip of video, right? Which actually is way easier to work with. And you can also filter the search when you're searching by video clips. I will only show the recording of humans and the recording of vehicles per channel, right? Or all channels at the same time, however you want to do it. Now, I'm gonna change my screen sharing to share you guys my web page here. Give me just a second to show you the data sheet of one NVR where you can find the information I just told you about. Give me just a quick second. Sorry, I'm trying to see where I can change my screen sharing function here.
Let me
Okay,
try
you
to do
guys
it
can see,
again.
you can see my whole screen right now?
No, I can't see anything, Enrique. Let me try to send you. Oh, there it is.
Okay. Yeah, just saw it, sharing. Okay, hold on. So I'm gonna share now you can see my browser now, right?
Right now I can see but the PowerPoint here.
Only PowerPoint. Hold on. Maybe I don't know what I'm
Where it
sharing
says
right
thank you.
now. Yeah, hold on. Can you see a PDF file right now, a data sheet?
Yes, now I can see it.
Okay, great. So what I'm gonna say is just this. This is the example of a DVR, right? Let me jump in for NVR for a little bit. Now, this is an NVR. Yeah, it's a 16 channel NVR, 16 PoE ports. Sorry. It tells you also that it supports a 8 megapixel camera, real nice, real great, right? Good. It also supports 2 SATA hard drive interfaces. Always pay attention at what is the maximum capacity per hard drive that it supports. For this NVR, only 6 terabytes per each hard drive. Now, the other thing I need to pay attention is to this part. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you can see what I mean, which is the incoming and outgoing bandwidth. Now, this NVR is perfect for what I'm about to say. If this NVR works with 16 channels and I am using 16 cameras of 8 megapixel and all the cameras are at 30 frames per second and all the cameras are using H.265 compression, what I need to do is the following. I think you guys can see my camera here, right? I just need to open my calculator, real simple, and I have to multiply 16 cameras times 8 megapixel. So it will give me 128. That is the bandwidth consumption if my values are 30 frames per second H.265 compression. And this NVR tells me that it can work with 160 megabits of incoming bandwidth. So yeah, of course it supports working with 16 cameras of 8 megapixel. But if I am to send that video away, let's say to a monitoring station through different phones or via network to whatever, to a management software, it will not ever support all those channels at the same time because the outgoing bandwidth capacity is only 80 megabits per second, which means that I would not be able to send all of the cameras, maybe half of them. And this is another thing that I should also note. Every manufacturer, us and everybody else, will give you this value, but you should always work not with the maximum value, but with 80% of that value. Why? It's not that because we are lying to you. No, that's not the case. It's because it would not perform well at full capacity, which means that if you want a better performance out of your NVR or your DVR, whatever, and I'm giving you the bandwidth limitations, always work with 80% of that value so you have a smooth experience. How can I know the 80% value of anything? Real simple. Multiply whatever that number is times 0.8. So I will do this, simple math. 160, that is the value that I get for the incoming bandwidth. If I multiply times 0.8, it gives me exactly 128, which is the bandwidth that I needed to work with my 16 cameras of 8 megapixels. So I'm good, I'm really good with that, right? But for the outgoing bandwidth, it says that I'm supporting 80. I actually should also multiply that times 0.8 and it gives me 64. So for a smooth experience with these NVRs, you can get the video of the 16 cameras at 8 megapixel, but if you want to send it out, you can only send half of that. So you have to be really careful, right? So keep all that in mind always. This is just another example of another NVR. This NVR is of 8 channels, and it tells you that it supports incoming bandwidth of 80 and outgoing also of 80. If I'm using only 8 cameras of 8 megapixel, 8 times 8, 64, I'm good. Both incoming and outgoing. I have no problem with this MBR. I can say whatever is coming in, send it out, and I have no issues. Okay. Now I'm gonna leave you with the next information. When we are working with DVRs, and this is one of the most common issues I see in the market, is that people think that the DVR is underperforming or it doesn't work with the cameras. It's real simple. There's a main difference between IP cameras and analog cameras. Analog cameras, unlike IP cameras, cannot encode video. Encoding means turning the waves, the analog image or signal, to ones and zeros, to code, right? IP cameras do that. They do that and they send that information through the network cable. But analog cameras are not capable of doing that. So who does this job? The DVR. In IP solutions, the cameras are already doing so. The MBR doesn't care much about the resolution. It cares more about the bandwidth. But in DVRs, in analog solutions, the DVR is doing the whole job. It's doing the recording, but it's also doing the encoding in order to be able to record. It has to convert those waves to ones and zeros, to code, so it can actually be recorded and also sent through network, right? So having that in mind, there's something called the encoding capacity of the DVR. Again, this is not a limitation that you will find in IP. You will only find this limitation in analog, okay? Because the DVR is doing more in terms of work in comparison to the MBR. Now, what value do I need to find? Firstly, what is the resolution that the DVR supports? It says, okay, I can support resolutions of up to, for this DVR, as example, this one, I can support in HDTVI input, which is the technology that we use in EPCOM. It can also support other technologies. It actually supports 5: TVI, AHD, CVI, CVBS, which is the oldest, and also IP. But let's talk about TVI. It supports 3 megapixel as maximum resolution. So if I were to work with 5 megapixel camera or 4K camera, 4K is the same as saying 8 megapixel. This is not the DVR for me. I should not be working with this one. If I'm working with 1080p or same as saying 2 megapixel camera or even 3 megapixel camera, yes, this DVR can support it, no problem whatsoever. After I know what's the input resolution that it can support, then I will have to find the encoding resolution. It tells me, okay, I could get even 4 megapixel. Actually, it can also support 4 megapixel from other technologies. I can record the 4 megapixel at 4 megapixel light, which is not the full 4 megapixel, but it's as close as possible that it can get to that, right? At 15 frames per second, or 1080p light and whatever is below that at 30 frames per second. 3 megapixel or 1080p fully, or anything below that at 15 frames per second. That is the encoding capacity of this DVR. I'm gonna give you another example. This other DVR. This guy right here says that for the TVI input, it supports 4 megapixel, no problem. And for the encoding, it can also record 4 megapixel at 15 frames per second, right? I have to be really aware of this, because if I'm choosing a DVR, then I think it's underperforming, it's because it's underperforming, it's because it doesn't have the capacity for that. So this applies to any brand that you see in the market, not only us. Any manufacturer, every manufacturer have to give you this information: input resolution and encoding capacity, right? So we have to be really aware of that. Let me find you another DVR just as an example using the EPCOM webpage. So I'm going to video surveillance, I'm going to turbo, I'm going to find DVRs. Now I'm going to find a 4K DVR. Again, when I say 4K, it's the same thing as saying 8 megapixel or Ultra HD. 3 ways of saying the same thing. So I'm going to try to download this. Okay, I think there's an error with this datasheet. Let me get another one. 4K. 4K. Okay, this is one. And yeah, this is another. No, sorry, not this one. Let me filter here by only EPCOM. So I think maybe this one, if it's not the same one as the other. Just a quick second. So I think I can download the datasheet. Yeah, good. Oh, again, I think there's an error with the web page right now. We'll fix that later. Let me see if I can find another 4K. I hope this one works. Good. Yeah. Okay. We have it here. So this is a 4K DVR, and it right away says HDTVI input 4K. Nice. Great. Fantastic. Now, for the encoding resolution and frame rate, it says that it can only record the full 4K at 8 frames per second. So that's why maybe you have seen that some videos in live video looks really smooth, but when you find playback it looks slower, or there's a lot of jumps, right? That I'm losing frames. It's because most likely that is the encoding capacity of your DVR, right? So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you guys. Any questions? Miguel, we have anything from anybody?
Just let's wait 1 minute to see if someone wants to ask something, Enrique.
Well, I already done with the material. I said I want to keep it short. Already I've been 45 minutes in, so if you guys have any questions, we're gonna give you a few minutes so you can ask away. If not, we will close the webinar. But before that, I would like to thank you all for your time, for being here. I encourage you to contact us for any issues that you might find with our products, anything that is not clear. We'll be doing more of webinars like this in English and also in Spanish for the region. Just keep in touch with your sales reps for the next upcoming webinars. Maybe the next one will be in a couple of months in February, so we can actually go a little more in depth from what we say today. So please, you have the chat box right there. Before you leave, I want to thank you again all for your time, for being here. And if nothing else, you can ask away.
No questions, Enrique. So I think the only thing that I can say is thank you for your time, and
Thank you.
we can see us together the next webinar. Thank you so much, Enrique.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you a lot. See you next time. Take care.